Welcome back to another episode of Plan Voodoo. I'm your host Derek, and today I'll be recapping Australian Survivor Heroes vs. Villains episode 18. Wow. The only way to encapsulate this episode is with a quote, and this is per George. Only thing worse than doing nothing is trying to do something and failing at it. Well, you know what, George? You tried to vote out Simon, and he didn't go home. Yes, Sean is gone at the hands of Hayley. We see him sent home in a 4-3-1 vote. The plan worked for Hayley. Yes, it worked. Queen Hayley is back, and she's creating herself more agency in this game to go against King George. Wow, what an episode. So yeah, I anticipated going into this episode using that quote against George in Simon's favor. Now, the final outcome didn't go to Simon's benefit, that being Matt going home, which I thought actually was going to happen. But Simon does stay. He's still in the game due to Hayley switching her vote from the plan as constructed within the Vigilantes, and they pulled in Nina to split it. The girls are voting on Simon. The guys on Sean. Sean knows to vote Simon. But Hayley switched her vote knowing that everything... She knew wherever all the votes were. She knew exactly how everything was going down. Kind of like how we've seen George has played most of this game until this vote. Yes, George, his head, man. It's great television. It is great television. But boy, oh boy, he's misreading Hayley big time. I just don't. It's wild to see. He beat her, she beat him in Australian Brain vs. Brawn in the finale. They were both in the final two. They hardly worked with each other. This time around, it seems like they're working together. However, Hayley is not really working with George. She's creating her own moves, doing her own thing. And we even saw at the very end of this episode, George does not think Hayley did it. He thinks Nina was the one who switched her vote. That is wild. I'm having a hard time comprehending what George is thinking. Why does he have so much trust in Hayley? I really don't get it, to be honest. I really do not understand why George has so much trust in Hayley. To further the fact, I guess, with George misreads this episode, why does he think Liz is on his side? During Tribal Council, most of the episode, we see a lot of focused shots on Shawnee. She seems very upset. We know Liz is distraught. She lost her best friend in the game, someone that she'll probably be friends with outside of this game, and it was at the hands of George. George did it to them, someone seemingly that was working very close with them, that being the Spice Girls, and he split it up. And he thinks that Liz is going to work with him, that she'll just be fine. No, bro. She is not fine. Like, oh my gosh. This is an awful episode for George. Awful episode for George. It could have gone a lot worse. It really could have gone a lot worse. He could have either been going home, or one of his allies could have been going home, either Matt or Jerry. It really could have got a lot worse, but wow. Yeah, wow. What an episode. This week on the whole has been very, very exciting episodes. We started the week with Sam going home after Sean and Nina misplaying their hidden immunity idols on themselves instead of Sam. Sam is sent home, even though Hayley tried to save Sam. That's another point in this season. We see Hayley sway away from what George is doing. Next episode, we see the blind side of Shawnee. Hayley's down to do the blind side. It breaks up what is known as ally of George, so that makes sense from Hayley's standpoint. The blind side of Shawnee, the Spice Girls are broken. And then this episode, we see Sean go home, and everyone's shocked. The remaining castaways in the game are shocked. The jury is shocked. I don't really think it's that shocking of a vote that Sean's gone home over Simon. I mean, to me, there's not much of a difference between them. Although Simon's a lot more entertaining. I very much enjoyed him in this episode. He was great. He almost had an A+ episode, other than not being involved in the vote. Yeah, it wasn't involved in the vote. But what an exciting week for Australian Survivor. We are down to 7 castaways remaining. And I'm excited. Who would have thought that we would get to this point and both George and Hayley would still be in this game? Not in a million years would I have ever anticipated that George and Hayley would be in the final 7. Wow. Yeah, this season has lived up to expectations and then some. It's probably one of my favorite Australian Survivor seasons that I have seen. And yeah, I can't wait to see who ends up on top as sole survivor. I have a feeling I know who it is, and I'll make note of that later on in this episode. I want to get into my weekly, or rather, my episode power rankings. So, let's get to it. Last episode, I had George ranked dead last. He could have gone home this episode. He really could have. But Hayley is not striking just yet. Not yet, but soon. I have a feeling it's going to be next episode. George has Jerry and Matt on his side. I do not see Jerry or Matt turning on George. And neither do the rest of the castaways, from what it seems. Matt was unwilling during the reward, after the reward challenge. He was brought along by Simon. Seemed unwilling to vote George, put George's name to parchment. That says a lot. That says a lot. We even see Simon throw Matt's name this episode. So we'll see. The king's going to get struck soon. I just have a feeling. So with that being said, I have to put George number 7. George, this was a bad episode for you. Your reads were all miscalculated. I'm not sure. Yeah, your days are numbered, honestly. I'm pretty confident that George is the next one to go. So George, you're number 7. At number 6, so this is where I'm going to put someone like Matt. I think this is where Matt goes, because Matt is a strong competitor. He almost won the reward challenge, in which we saw Simon win a vehicle. Yes, Simon won the Isuzu D-Max. Awesome. Love to see it. But Matt, is his loyalty, he wears his heart in his sleeve. I don't see him wanting to change the way he's playing currently. So why should the others want to continue working with him? Why should they? And if we're being honest, if they're going to take one of Matt or Jerry to the end, it's probably going to be Jerry, because they think they can beat Jerry in an endurance comp when it matters most. And who knows, they might even take Jerry to the final 2, whoever that may be. So Matt, you have to be number 6. At number 5, now this is where Simon is going to be. Yes, Simon, you will be number 5. You've really impressed me this episode. I can't really say it enough. You've won back-to-back community challenges until this episode, and you almost won this one as well. You won the reward challenge today. You're a challenge threat, and I know that even though Hayley wants to work with you, from what we see in this episode, she needs to get you out sooner rather than later, because you could go on a streak and win your way to the end. And hey, maybe Hayley wants to go to the end with Simon. Who knows? She could very well still win in that scenario. But I think it seems about right. You take the challenge threat out at 5, 6. It makes sense for Simon to go here. So Simon, you're number 5. At number 4. So I've given some thought about this. I think, barring that this person doesn't win immunity, as of course, like Simon wouldn't win immunity at 5, that they would go here, and that would be Liz. Yes, Liz is another challenge threat, and she might not have as close of connections as the other 3 do because they're originally heroes, that being Jerry, Nina, and Hayley. So we'll see, but I'm hoping Liz gets her revenge on George for the blind side of Shawnee. Yes, I am still rooting for George to play a perfect game, but we saw this episode, he is not doing that anymore. So with that being said, I just want George to get blindsided. He's his ego is very inflated at this point, and it would be a sight to see, to say the least. And I hope Liz is partaking in that blind side of George. So Liz, you're number 4. At number 3, so this is where I will put Nina. Yes, Nina won her first immunity necklace, the first one in the Twine family, as seen and on this episode, noted by both Jonathan and George. Wow, wow, wow. Impressive. And it's an endurance comp, and we know the finale tends to be endurance comps, but I don't anticipate her winning the endurance comp at the end. If Hayley's in it, now this is speculating that it will be a final 2 and not a final 3. We will see. More than not, Australian Survivor has done final 2s, which I much prefer. Make your case. It's either this person or that person. Pretty straightforward. So at number 2, this is where I have to put Jerry. Yes, Jerry, he's number 2. Kind of like a goat. All of his moves have been masked behind George. I'm unsure how the jury views Jerry. So we'll see. I really don't know. I do think he should be given credit more than it might be led on. His reads have been quite good. But yeah, he might just be a goat to where whoever he goes against in the finale, they're going to sweep him. And with that being said, I am pretty confident at this point, I said this last episode, that we will get a 2-time winner. Yes, Hayley will win Australian Survivor Heroes vs. Villains. Time and time again this season, we've gotten moments, edits, of Hayley mentioning she wants to play her own game. She can't always play with George. This reminds me of one of the first seasons that I watched for Australian Survivor, and that was Champions vs. Contenders, which the winner of season 4 was Pia. Yes, Pia had her own storyline that season, which was she can't go to the end with Luke. She cannot go to the end with Luke. That story arc played out over several episodes, like a handful or 2 episodes. We're seeing the same thing happen again with Hayley, this time being George. She cannot take George to the end. She will not take George to the end. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's a clear winner edit if I've ever seen one. I don't really pay attention to the edit, but it's clear when it's clear and obvious like that. I do notice things like that. I just have to say, Hayley, you've played. I'm honestly shocked you're still in the game, being the only winner on this cast. But wow, if Hayley wins this game, it's gonna be wild. It's gonna be wild. One of the best ever. George also one of the best ever. We shall see how the rest of the season plays out. I'm so excited. I am so excited. For future content, be sure to listen to the rest of the Australian Survivor episode recaps we have coming down the pipeline. Additionally, we are covering US Survivor Season 44. Episode 2, we will be recording and dropping tomorrow. It might not be tomorrow when you listen, but it will be tomorrow for myself. So be sure to stay tuned for that and check that out. Yeah, it's a fun season so far for US Survivor. But for now, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Plain Voodoo Pod and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button wherever you're listening, whether it be YouTube, Spotify. We really appreciate the support. Thank you for listening to our podcast. This is Plain Voodoo. And George, I've said this the last few episodes. This is Plain Voodoo, where a split vote is not safe. Props to you, Hayley.